last time. Last time I spoke about how the Lord has really given us an exciting life, and some of these stories that we've gone through in Botswana and South Africa, they need to be repeated. And we spoke last time about how the Lord preserved us from that hippo attack. And this morning I want to talk just for a moment, just before our message, is tell you how the Lord has provided for us. And it is always a challenge. When I was in the secularly employed, I had a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks. And then the idea of going out in the mission field and serving the Lord and trusting by faith that there'll always be funds there to meet our needs. And that was a big step of an adjustment well, especially on the breadwinner's part. And you could probably imagine this. I got my last check from my secular employment, and then after that, I'm trusting the Lord, and whatever funds came in without requesting anything or making our needs known, how the Lord provided for us. Now, one of the stories that I'd like to talk about a little bit this morning is just how the Lord blessed us and guided us through our 20 years that we were in Botswana, and then 9 years later on in South Africa. Now, remember, we were in the village of Maun near the Okavango Delta. It was a very primitive sort of community. It was the tribal capital to the Botswana people. And that's where my wife and our 3 sons moved to. And we started a work in that village. Now, as the village started to grow, we first started to have our meetings inside our house. We built a house in the center of the village, and we had, well, this isn't our house. We had a house in the center of the village, and then eventually outgrew the house, and we decided to build a church building that we would be able to use for our functions. And so this was our first church building. It's just reed walls and gum poles and thatched roof. And we used that facility for a number of years. It was good. And eventually, as the village started to develop, there were modern buildings going up here and there. And we were just, thinking as elders in the assembly that it would be nice if we had a nice building. So we had gone back home on furlough, and we had met with an elder in the assembly that we were nearby at the time. And we met with him, or I did meet with him once a week. We had a time of prayer together. He was a contractor as well. And I talked to him about our own vision of seeing a nice building established in Maun. And he says, well, let's just pray about it. And we did. And neither of us had the money to do something like this. So we were on our way back to Botswana, and we flew out of Miami, I think it was, or Fort Lauderdale. We drove down south, and here we're in South Florida. And there was a very dear brother, and many of you will know who he is. I won't mention his name just now, but when he heard that we were planning a building project in Maun, he said, Sid, what do you think it would cost to get the building up to roof level? And I was really just guessing. I didn't really know even the size of the building, but I know I wanted to do a big one. But I did say, well, 25,000 US would probably get us started. And he just, without even pausing, he just says, oh, I can afford that. And he wrote me a check for $25,000 for the start of the building. And I thought, man, I should ask for 50. That came too easy. But anyways, the Lord blessed, and we started to see this project come together. And as you can see, there's the old chapel, and we're starting to build a new one. And we did have, we hired a lot of local people, but we did have some volunteers that helped as well. This brother here, he came from Ontario, Peter Dent, and he was a great help. He stayed with us for about 6 weeks and did a lot of the roof trusses. The roof trusses were actually built in Ontario, and the rest of the structure we obviously built in Botswana, and we just coordinated with our friends in Ontario as to where we would put the pillars, et cetera, and everything came together quite nicely. You can even see the steeple here. You check in the background, there's a giraffe just down there at the Tamalatani River. That's the sort of village that we were living in. Some of the hardest workers around were these dear ladies, and they were tremendous help. And now you can see the building starting to come together. We wanted to build something that could accommodate a large Sunday school. And many of the Sunday schools in Botswana are 600, 800 children. And so we wanted to build something that could at least accommodate 500 or so. So we started with this structure and we finished it. And this was all done just trusting the Lord. Money came in and people were aware of it, and we had volunteers coming to help. And then we hosted the National Easter Conference, and you can see the size of the indoors, and it was a lovely time. So that's just how we have experienced the Lord blessing and providing for us in our various ways.